Today, we're examining the chilling case of a man who stepped outside for a cigarette and, within hours, found himself accused of murder by his own wife. What began as a routine evening in Phoenix quickly unraveled into a web of deception, digital evidence, and blood-stained clothing. As detectives peeled back layers of inconsistencies, they discovered a calculated plan that nearly sent an innocent man to prison for a crime he didn't commit. On the evening of March 17, 2022, at 10:14 p.m., the Phoenix Police Department received a frantic 911 call from Melissa Carter, 34, reporting that her husband, Eric Carter, 36, had returned to their apartment on East McDowell Road with blood on his clothes and acting strangely. According to Melissa, Eric had left to smoke a cigarette roughly an hour earlier, but returned looking disheveled and tense. She claimed he walked into their bathroom, began washing his hands vigorously, and when questioned, simply stated, "I took care of our problem." She told the dispatcher she was calling from the kitchen while her husband was showering and feared for her safety. Officers from the Central Phoenix precinct arrived at the scene at 10:29 p.m. They found Eric Carter calmly drying his hair with a towel, dressed in clean clothes. He appeared confused by the police presence, but was cooperative. Officers noticed a pile of damp clothing in the bathroom, a gray t-shirt and black jeans with what appeared to be bloodstains. The washing machine in the apartment's small utility closet contained bloody water and a bath towel mid-cycle. There were small reddish-brown stains on the bathroom tile that seemed partially cleaned. Officers took photos of the scene and collected the clothing as evidence. Eric was detained for questioning, but not formally arrested. He maintained his innocence throughout preliminary questioning at the scene. Before we continue with this twisted tale, take a moment to let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button to support our channel and never miss our next true crime investigation. We upload new cases daily. At 11:36 p.m. that same night, police received another call, this time from a security guard at Coronado Park, approximately 1.2 miles from the Carter's apartment. The guard reported finding an unresponsive male near the park's eastern perimeter during his routine patrol. Officers arrived at 11:52 p.m. and discovered the body of a man later identified as Daniel Winters, 38, lying face down beside a walking path. The victim had sustained multiple blunt force injuries to the back of his head and upper torso. Medical responders pronounced him dead at the scene at 12:07 a.m. The victim's wallet remained in his pocket with cash and cards intact, ruling out robbery as a motive. His phone was missing, but a set of car keys was found nearby. The medical examiner noted significant trauma from what appeared to be a heavy object with a distinct pattern, possibly a tire iron or similar tool. The blood spatter indicated the attack occurred at that location, rather than the body being moved there. There were no immediate witnesses to the crime, but the timing and proximity to the Carter residence prompted investigators to consider a possible connection between the cases. Detective Samantha Powell of Phoenix PD's Homicide Unit took charge of the investigation by 1:30 a.m. Her team began processing both scenes simultaneously. The blood-stained clothing from the Carter apartment was sent to the department's forensic lab for urgent analysis, while officers canvassed the park area for witnesses and surveillance footage. The initial theory centered on Eric Carter as a prime suspect, based on his wife's statement and the bloody clothing discovered in their home. His timeline placed him outside during the window when the murder likely occurred, creating what appeared to be a straightforward case. Eric Carter was taken to Phoenix Police Headquarters for formal questioning. During his interview, he maintained a consistent story that contradicted his wife's account. According to Eric, he left their apartment around 9:15 p.m. to smoke a cigarette in the designated smoking area near their building's pool. He claimed he chatted briefly with a neighbor, then walked to a nearby convenience store for a soda before returning home around 9:45 p.m. He denied going anywhere near Coronado Park and stated he had no connection to Daniel Winters. When asked about the bloody clothing, Eric appeared genuinely confused. He insisted the clothes weren't his and that he had taken a shower because he had been working on his motorcycle earlier that day and wanted cleanup. He denied making any statement about taking care of a problem and claimed his wife must have misunderstood or fabricated the comment. Meanwhile, Melissa Carter provided further details to Detective Powell. She described Eric's behavior as erratic when he returned home. According to her statement, Eric entered their apartment at approximately 10:05 p.m., appearing anxious and with visible blood on his gray t-shirt and the knees of his jeans. She claimed he immediately went to the bathroom, removed his clothing, and started to shower. When she asked what happened, she alleged he gave her a cold stare and said, "I took care of our problem. Don't ask questions." Melissa stated she was afraid to press further and waited until he was in the shower to call 911. She added that Eric had been increasingly agitated in recent weeks over financial problems and had mentioned wanting to eliminate their troubles. She noted that Daniel Winters, the victim, was an associate of Eric's who had recently argued with him over money. When shown a photo of Winters, Melissa identified him as someone who had visited their apartment twice in the past month, most recently 3 days prior to the murder. She described the meeting as tense and said the men had argued in hushed tones. Detective Powell observed that Melissa appeared composed during questioning, providing specific details without hesitation or contradiction. She agreed to a follow-up interview the next day and voluntarily surrendered her cell phone for examination, explaining she had nothing to hide and wanted to assist the investigation fully. The department's forensic team began processing the evidence collected from both scenes. Preliminary analysis confirmed the blood on the clothing matched the victim's blood type, and the pattern of staining was consistent with close proximity to blunt force trauma. However, several anomalies began to emerge. The clothing size appeared slightly smaller than what would fit Eric Carter's frame. Additionally, the jeans showed no signs of having been worn during physical exertion. They lacked the distinctive wear patterns and stress marks typically found in clothing worn during a violent attack. By morning, investigators had obtained security footage from several locations. The convenience store's interior camera confirmed Eric Carter's presence at 9:32 p.m., where he purchased a soda and exchanged brief pleasantries with the cashier. He was wearing a black t-shirt and blue jeans, not the gray shirt and black jeans found in the bathroom. Additional footage from the apartment complex showed Eric returning to the building at 9:47 p.m. and entering the elevator. At no point did the available footage show Eric leaving the complex again before police arrived. The medical examiner's preliminary report placed the time of death between 9:45 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. based on body temperature and lividity. This timeline created a significant problem for the prosecution's case against Eric Carter. As security footage established, he was already back in his building during much of this window. Furthermore, given the distance between the apartment and the park, it would have been extremely difficult for Eric to commit the murder and return home in time to match the established timeline. Detective Powell noted these inconsistencies in her case file and requested accelerated processing of the DNA evidence from the clothing. She also expanded the investigation to include Melissa Carter's movements and activities. On day 2 of the investigation, the forensic team reported their initial findings on the blood-stained clothing. While the blood was confirmed to match the victim, Daniel Winters, the DNA analysis revealed no skin cells, hair follicles, or sweat residue from Eric Carter on either the shirt or jeans. This absence was highly unusual, as clothing worn during a violent assault typically contains abundant transferred DNA from a wearer. Instead, the blood pattern suggested the clothing had been pressed against an already bloody surface, rather than worn during the attack. The washing machine from the Carter apartment also yielded important evidence. Technicians discovered that the blood in the water trap and drum contained diluted samples matching Winters' DNA, but again, no cellular material from Eric Carter. This finding supported a growing theory that the clothes had been deliberately staged rather than actually worn during the commission of a crime. Detective Powell reassessed the case evidence. The combination of Eric's verifiable alibi via security footage, the inconsistent clothing he was wearing versus what was found, and the lack of his DNA on the supposedly incriminating items began to shift the focus of the investigation. She requested an urgent analysis of Melissa Carter's phone and began researching the relationship between Melissa and the victim, Daniel Winters. The digital forensics team made a breakthrough on day 3. Analysis of Melissa's phone revealed deleted text messages between her and Daniel Winters spanning the previous 6 weeks. The recovered conversations indicated a relationship far more personal than Melissa had disclosed. In multiple exchanges, they discussed meeting privately and referenced fixing the situation, and finding a solution that works for everyone. One message from Melissa to Winters, sent 3 days before the murder, read, "We need to meet one last time. I can't keep living like this." Winters replied, "Fine, Thursday night, the usual place." Most significantly, location data from Melissa's phone tracked her movement from the apartment complex to Coronado Park between 9:20 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the night of the murder, precisely when Eric was documented at the convenience store and returning to their building. Her phone remained in the park area for approximately 25 minutes before returning to the vicinity of their apartment at 10:03 p.m. The device's accelerometer data showed rapid movements consistent with physical exertion during the time at the park, followed by a period of stillness. The phone's camera roll contained a deleted photo taken at 9:52 p.m., showing Daniel Winters lying face down on the ground. The image was taken from a standing position above the body, in the exact location and position where the body was later discovered by the security guard. The metadata from this photo placed Melissa's phone at the crime scene almost 2 hours before the body was officially discovered. Armed with this new evidence, Detective Powell obtained a search warrant for the Carters' apartment and vehicles. In the trunk of Melissa's car, officers found a tool bag containing a tire iron with traces of blood in its grooves. Preliminary field tests indicated the blood matched Winters' type, and the tool's distinctive shape matched the pattern of wounds observed on the victim. Also recovered from beneath the spare tire was a plastic bag containing a second phone, later identified as belonging to Daniel Winters. Armed with mounting evidence contradicting Melissa's account, Detective Powell requested a forensic examination of the Carters' financial records. The analysis revealed that Daniel Winters had been depositing $2,000 monthly into Melissa's personal account over the past year, transactions she had hidden from her husband. The most recent deposit occurred just 1 week before the murder. Further investigation uncovered a life insurance policy taken out by Melissa on her husband 6 months earlier, with a payout of $500,000 in the event of his death. Melissa was brought in for a second interview on March 20th. When confronted with the evidence, the phone location data, deleted messages, financial transactions, and forensic findings, her composed demeanor cracked. After initially denying everything, she requested a lawyer, ending the interview. With Eric Carter still technically in custody but now viewed as a victim rather than a suspect, Detective Powell formally presented the case to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. The prosecutor authorized charges against Melissa Carter, who was arrested later that day on suspicion of first-degree murder, evidence tampering, and filing a false police report. A more thorough forensic examination of the evidence yielded additional information strengthening the case against Melissa. The tire iron recovered from her vehicle was confirmed as the murder weapon. Its distinct shape matched the wounds on Winters' skull, and DNA analysis verified the blood belonged to the victim. Fibers caught in the tool's textured grip matched Melissa's gloves, found in her car's center console. The clothing recovered from the Carters' bathroom underwent more sophisticated testing. Analysis confirmed the garments had never been worn by Eric. They were actually purchased from a discount store 2 sizes too small for him. Receipt record from Melissa's credit card showed she had bought identical items 3 days before the murder. The blood pattern analysis indicated the clothing had been deliberately placed in contact with the victim's wounds after death, rather than becoming stained during an act of assault. This finding aligned with the theory that Melissa had staged the evidence to implicate her husband. Perhaps most damning was the full recovery of deleted text messages from both Melissa's phone and Daniel Winters' device found in her car. The exchanges revealed a complex relationship. Winters had been blackmailing Melissa over financial fraud they had committed together at their workplace, a real estate management company where both had been employed until 6 months earlier. Winters had discovered Melissa had been skimming funds from client accounts and joined in the scheme. When the company began an internal audit, Winters demanded regular payments from Melissa to maintain his silence. The messages showed increasing hostility in the weeks before the murder, with Winters threatening to expose everything to both the company and Eric if the payment stopped. One particularly incriminating message from Melissa, sent the day before the murder, read, "This has to end. I can't keep paying you forever." Winters' response, "Then I start talking. Your choice." On March 24th, Detective Powell conducted a final walk through the crime scene with the forensic team. They reconstructed the events based on all available evidence. According to their timeline, Melissa left the apartment shortly after Eric stepped out to smoke, driving to Coronado Park where she had arranged to meet Winters. She brought the tire iron and a bag containing the planted clothes. During their meeting, she struck Winters from behind multiple times, causing his death. She then pressed the pre-purchased clothing against his wounds to collect blood evidence, photographed the scene, and returned home. Upon arrival, she placed the bloody clothing in the bathroom and started the washing machine to create the impression that Eric was cleaning evidence. She waited until he took his regular evening shower to call 911, fabricating the story about his strange behavior and incriminating statements. The case file was updated to reflect the new understanding of events. Eric Carter was formally cleared of all suspicion on March 25th, after spending 8 days under investigation. He was released from custody and provided with victim support services. Meanwhile, Melissa remained in custody, denied bail due to severity of the charges and calculated nature of her actions. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office prepared a comprehensive case against Melissa Carter, focusing on 3 primary evidence categories: digital, physical, and financial. The digital evidence included GPS location data placed in her phone at the murder scene during the critical window, the deleted photo of the victim taken before the body was discovered, and the recovered text messages showing motive and premeditation. The physical evidence centered on a murder weapon found in her possession, the staged clothing with blood patterns inconsistent with being worn during the attack, and the victim's phone hidden in her vehicle. The financial evidence established clear motivation: the blackmail payments to Winters, the hidden fraud at their former workplace, and the recently acquired life insurance policy on her husband. On June 5th, 2022, Melissa Carter was indicted by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, and filing a false police report. Her trial began 4 months later, drawing significant local media attention due to the calculated nature of the crime and the attempted framing of an innocent spouse. During the 7-day trial, prosecutors methodically presented their case, walking jurors through the timeline of events supported by surveillance footage, phone records, and forensic analysis. The defense attempted to portray Melissa as a victim of Winters' manipulation and extortion, arguing that she had acted in self-defense during their final confrontation. However, the premeditated nature of her actions, purchasing clothing in advance, bringing the murder weapon to the meeting, and elaborately staging evidence, severely undermined this claim. Eric Carter testified about discovering his wife's financial deception and the trauma of being falsely accused. He described confusion of being detained for a crime he didn't commit and the betrayal he felt upon learning of his wife's deliberate attempt to frame him. His testimony provided jurors with emotional context while reinforcing the prosecution's timeline. Digital forensics experts explained how Melissa's phone data contradicted her initial statements. They showed the jury maps of her movements on the night of the murder, highlighted the deleted photo of the victim's body taken before its official discovery, and walked through the sequence of text messages establishing motive. The medical examiner testified that the pattern of injuries indicated the victim was struck from behind without warning, contradicting any self-defense claim. The angle and force of the blows suggested ambush rather than confrontation. The forensic team presented their analysis of the blood-stained clothing, explaining how the distribution pattern was inconsistent with clothing worn during an attack. They demonstrated how the evidence had been deliberately staged to implicate Eric, from the strategic placement of blood to the calculated insertion of the clothing into the washing machine. On October 18, 2022, after less than 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict finding Melissa Carter guilty on all charges. During the sentencing phase, the prosecutor emphasized the calculated nature of the crime and the deliberate attempt to frame an innocent person. This was not a crime of passion or a momentary lapse in judgment, the prosecutor stated. This was a methodical plan to commit murder and then send her own husband to prison for it. She was willing to destroy 2 lives to escape the consequences of her earlier crimes. The defense argued for leniency, citing Melissa's previously clean criminal record and claiming she had acted under extreme duress from Winters' blackmail. Character witnesses, including her sister and former colleagues, describe her as trustworthy and kind under normal circumstances. On November 15th, 2022, Judge Raymond Ortiz delivered his sentence. He addressed Melissa directly, saying, "The court cannot overlook the extraordinary calculation evident in both the murder itself and the elaborate frame-up that followed. You not only took a life, but attempted to destroy another through false accusation. The level of betrayal toward your husband, combined with the premeditation shown in your actions, demands substantial punishment." Melissa Carter received 25 years to life for first-degree murder, with additional consecutive sentences for the lesser charges, bringing her total sentence to 32 years with no possibility of parole for the first 22 years. As she was led from the courtroom, she maintained her composure but made no statement. In the aftermath of the trial, Eric Carter filed for divorce, which was granted in January 2023. He sold their apartment and relocated to Colorado, seeking a fresh start away from the painful memories and media attention. In a brief statement released through his attorney, he expressed gratitude to the investigators whose thoroughness had prevented a miscarriage of justice. "I came within hours of being charged with a murder I didn't commit," the statement read. "If not for the diligence of Detective Powell and her team in questioning the obvious narrative, my life would have been destroyed completely. While I'm still processing betrayal, I'm thankful the truth prevailed." The case prompted the Phoenix Police Department to review its protocols for handling evidence in domestic situations where one spouse accuses another. Detective Powell received a commendation for her work, specifically for recognizing the inconsistencies early in the investigation and pursuing alternative theories despite the seemingly straightforward initial evidence. In her report, she noted, "This case highlights the importance of questioning even the most convincing narratives and letting physical evidence lead the investigation rather than witness statements alone." The prosecutor's office used the case as a training example for new attorneys, emphasizing the value of digital forensics in modern investigations. The recovered location data and deleted photo proved crucial in establishing Melissa's presence at the scene and her knowledge of the crime before it was reported. The financial investigation also served as a model, demonstrating how following money trails can reveal hidden motives and relationships. 6 months after the trial, a journalist investigating the case discovered additional information about the relationship between Melissa Carter and Daniel Winters. Records from their former employer confirmed they had been involved in diverting client maintenance fees to personal accounts over a 2-year period, totaling approximately $175,000. The company had begun an internal audit shortly before both left their positions, though the full extent of fraud wasn't discovered until after Winters' death. This confirmed Melissa's motive went beyond simple blackmail. She faced potential criminal charges for fraud if Winters had come forward. The investigation also revealed that Melissa had approached 3 different insurance companies before finding one willing to issue the policy on Eric. The first 2 had declined based on the unusually high coverage amount requested for a couple with modest assets. This evidence of insurance shopping further demonstrated her premeditation. The Phoenix Police Department closed the case file in December 2022 with a final classification of solved/closed convicted offender. The evidence collected during the investigation was preserved according to department policy, and digital copies were retained for training purposes. Daniel Winters' family held a memorial service after the trial concluded. His sister told reporters that while Daniel had made poor choices in his financial dealings with Melissa, no one deserves to die for their mistakes. She expressed gratitude for the thorough investigation that brought his killer to justice. The apartment complex where the Carters lived installed additional security cameras following the incident, and the management company began offering rideshare vouchers for residents needing late-night transportation, acknowledging the community's increased safety concerns. Coronado Park, the murder scene, saw temporary decreased usage after the crime, but returned to normal activity within a year. The city installed improved lighting along the walking paths in response to community concerns. As the 2nd anniversary of the murder approaches, the case remains a topic of discussion among legal professionals in Arizona. It exemplifies how digital evidence has transformed modern criminal investigations, providing irrefutable timelines and location data that can contradict even the most carefully constructed false narratives. The case has been featured in several legal publications and criminal justice courses at Arizona State University as an example of forensic digital analysis. Melissa Carter's appeal, filed in early 2023, was denied by the Arizona Court of Appeals in September. Her legal team had argued that the search of her phone exceeded the scope of her consent, but the court upheld the original ruling that her voluntary surrender of the device constituted valid consent for forensic examination. She remains incarcerated at the Arizona State Prison Complex, Perryville, where she works in the prison library and has reportedly begun writing a memoir, though prison regulations prevent its publication while she serves her sentence. Eric Carter, now living quietly in Denver, has declined all interview requests and documentary proposals. According to friends, he has begun working as an automotive technician and is slowly rebuilding his life. He has advocated for stronger protections for those falsely accused of crimes and donated to Innocence Project organizations that work to exonerate the wrongfully convicted. The true impact of the case extends beyond the individuals directly involved. It demonstrates the evolving nature of criminal investigations in an era of ubiquitous digital footprints. The fact that Melissa's phone tracked her movements, recorded her activities through metadata, and preserved her communications even after deletion highlights how difficult it has become to commit crimes without leaving electronic evidence. For investigators, the case underscores the importance of following evidence rather than assumptions, particularly when dealing with domestic situations where relationships and motivations can be complex and deceptive. Detective Powell, in a rare interview given to a police training publication, emphasized this point. The initial evidence pointed clearly at Eric Carter. He was outside during the likely time of murder. His wife reported incriminating statements, and bloody clothing was found in their home. It would have been easy to stop there. But the small inconsistencies, the wrong size clothing, the precise timeline from security footage, the unusual blood patterns, told us to keep digging. Sometimes the most obvious suspect is being deliberately made obvious. The Phoenix Police Department formally closed the case in its records with a final classification: cleared by arrest, conviction obtained. Note, initial suspect cleared through digital evidence and forensic analysis. The file remains a textbook example of how technology has changed the landscape of criminal investigation, making it increasingly difficult to stage false evidence and frame innocent individuals when digital footprints tell a different story.